Hello and welcome. My name is Mendy.
And I'm True.
Welcome to Shield's Rest. We're a group of friends bound by our love of tabletop role playing games, and our job here is to explore possible options on how to play the character you've always wanted to play in any TTRPG that you wish. Today we both made a attack combat bard in the new Daggerheart TTRPG by Darrington Press. And we'll be going level by level explaining each of our builds and why we chose them. If you like this video, please give us a like and subscribe to the channel, where we'll be creating more of these builds with various different games. True, would you mind explaining the idea of your character and what you're doing at level 1?
Yes, so the idea behind mine was, especially as a bard, how can I do the most damage? But I wanted to approach this from without using a ton of spells. I was thinking about how can I be that melee battle bard almost, and was running into one issue that I would like to see Daggerheart kind of fix maybe, and maybe this doesn't work long term, but in thinking about this, it feels like they want this to be something that allows you as the player to be able to create whatever kind of character you want to create, especially with the class that you want to create that with. And to me, I'd like to see them take away the two domain deck system where you have to have these two domain decks that they choose. And I'd rather they have the one domain deck that's unavoidable, and then you have your option for the second domain deck, whatever you want to be. Because with this, I was thinking, like, man, I could be a battle bard that's actually fighting up front, not just going the route that I'm going with, but being that kind of upfront fighter that's still singing the praises, doing all the stuff, telling the stories. But also you could go with like the Splendor deck to try and heal, and also, you know, be more of like a godly sort of bard where you're doing the hymns, you're doing the chants, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
So, but
I know what you're talking about.
That's what I was kind of wanting, and that's what I was starting to feel as I was building this particular character, because so badly did I want to be able to use the Midnight deck. So my bard I'm taking the approach of kind of that scoundrel kind of feel to him, where he's very much so that charismatic individual, but also using knives and such. So I created a dwarf underborn. You could almost call it like a rope. Like, yeah, I'll go with the scoundrel. I like the kind of scoundrel idea here.
A dwarf underborn.
Yeah. So the reason why I took dwarf is I love dwarves anyway, but I think it's good from this perspective, just for this build alone. If you were going just straight off of how do I build a solid combat character, the dwarf gives you a lot of survivability. So the dwarf has the first ability that allows you to spend 3 hope and essentially half the damage that you take. Then there's the other one that allows you to, if you're taking minor damage, if it's in your minor threshold, you can roll a d6, and on a 5+, you can negate the damage entirely. So you're taking no hit points from that.
Yeah.
Well, hit points from that. So I like that. And then the Underborn side of things, I was thinking, okay, this is going to be perfect for my particular build here, because whenever you're in an area with low light or heavy shadow, you have advantage on rolls to hide, investigate, or perceive details in that area. So feel like that's going to come up in a lot of different ways, especially the hide side of things, which is, you'll see as we go here, that's going to be kind of the main thing that I'm going for. And so then for the gear, I ended up taking a dagger and a small dagger, because I wanted to do that D8 plus 1. So I did go on the finesse side as my secondary main stat besides presence. I still kept presence as the main stat for me, just because of all the different domain cards that are out there that still use presence.
Yeah.
So you can do that much more. So that's kind of the idea here. And then I did take Gambus and armor. I wanted the evasion. I was kind of going between leather armor and Gambeson, but I felt like the evasion +1 was more valuable than just that extra bit of armor. So, but as far as what I took for the starting out domain deck cards, starting off with the subclass, I did stick with Troubadour this time as well. I did want to be able to heal a hit point or be able to a close target temporarily vulnerable. So I did want to make that happen if at all possible. And then also either you or a close ally takes a hope. I did like those options just because a hope is very useful, especially when you do need it. Same goes for healing a hit point or making a close target temporarily vulnerable. I mean, that can be huge sometimes. So with that, I did also take inspirational words for my first grace card. I did want to be able to clear the stress, heal a hit point, gain a hope. Although it's not damage oriented right now, it allows you to be that much more damage oriented later by being able to clear that stress or to be able to gain that hope.
Yeah.
And that does actually come in the form of the Book of Tafar here. So I wanted that mysterious mist more than anything. I wanted to be able to hide within that mist or be able to enclose others within that mist, get in there, and just go stabbing. And that's kind of how I approached that one. Same goes for the Wild Flame. I wanted to be able to burn through, especially for anyone that's nearby, and do that 2d6 magic damage and a stress. Like, that's pretty good. And then the Magic Hand, of course, has just great utility to it, to be able to tap somebody on the shoulder, steal something.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, level 1, I really like the Book of Typhar. I thought it was really solid.
It's a great starter card, and I feel like the level 1s are all great starters to get you going on whatever path you do end up choosing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. For my level 1, I actually went Seaborn Fairy.
Okay.
Yeah, main reason choosing Fairy here is because I wanted to fly, and that'll come into play whenever I tell you what weapon I have decided. But you can fly. While flying, mark a stress before your adversary's attack roll to increase your evasion by 2 against that attack. I think that's pretty big. I mean, it's just a plus to the evasion anytime you're flying. And I mean, Daggerheart hasn't like sorted out kind of flying speed, anything like that nature. So as written, it just seems you can fly. Fairies also give you luck bender. I thought this was pretty handy. I'm starting to really enjoy this ancestry. Once per session, after you or an ally in close range make an action roll, you spend 3 hope to re-roll the duality die. I like that, even though you do have to take the new result. But also, my reason for taking Seaborn here is it's pretty much for like the tokens and just adding the modifiers to your roll. You can sense the ebb and flow of life. When you roll with fear, put a token on this card. You can hold a number of tokens up to your level. Before you make an action roll, you can spend 1 or more of these tokens to add them as +1 modifiers to your roll. I think that's really big because, I mean, you're going to be rolling with a lot of fear just throughout. So it's nice. It's nice to be able to reimburse that fear into something beneficial. So that was my main reason to go into Seaborn Fairy there. For my starting out with my traits, this might be a little odd as a bard, but I actually took the +2 to agility this time, a 1 to presence and 1 to instinct, and then a -1 to knowledge. For this specific build, my attack bard, I want high agility and high presence. So going down the levels, you'll see kind of why I wanted this, and that is because for my starting weapon, I went ahead and picked up a longbow as my primary. It is cumbersome, so this does subtract 1 to your evasion, but luckily enough, I picked up the Gambison armor to give me a +1 to evasion. So that just cancels out. But yeah, this one, the longbow, at the early levels, you're not gonna be dealing too much damage with spell casting or anything of that nature. So I wanted to be in the air at level 1 with my longbow, being able to deal damage, and that's why I kind of wanted to add some agility into this. And as a secondary, a small dagger, just in case you get into that close range, like you don't want to be that fairy with a longbow and a hand crossbow and just have to use your fist, you know? For my subclass, I also selected Troubadour. I just didn't think Wordsmith would fit into here. I wanted a way to heal up. That was my issue with this build, was that there's no real easy way to make a attack forward bard. So we kind of had to choose things that don't actually pertain to combat to get there, and that's kind of why I'm going Troubadour here. But for my domain deck cards that I took, the two of them that you get at level 1, I went ahead and grabbed Inspirational Words because, much like you, I want to be able to get rid of that stress. This build that I made is going to be stressed often, so I need a way to clear some of that. And as for my second card, I went ahead and took a Book of Ava, again, much like I did in our last video. That'll give you Power Push, Tava's Armor, and Ice Spikes. The main reason I picked this one for this build, though, was for Ice Spikes, because it's within very far range, and we're going to be flying. So if you're tracking arrows, you run out of arrows, you'll be able to summon some Ice Spikes and just use that as your main damage dealer. So
that one is pretty reliable, especially for your second, like, off the side. If you're not able to get a good shot, you might be able to use your Ice Spikes to kind of mess with them, or be able to like hold something in place that you didn't, like a door or something, so that way it doesn't fly straight open. Like, you can use it in even a non-damage roll. That can be super helpful, so that way everyone can get ready too. So I do like that.
And we didn't touch on this last time, but one thing that I did want to point out here is for this character in specific, I wanted to grab an experience that's going to help me. And my idea was like right between the eyes as a and use that as whenever you're making a called shot with a bow or any other ranged weapon, you can add that onto it. So I think of this character as growing up around like an archery family or something, and they were just a prodigy, and they hit him right between the eyes every time. And that's going to come into play later as we level up here. So with this one, I did enter an experience that is going to affect my level ups here. But I mean, as always, talk with your GM, see what kind of experience you can get out there and that you're gonna use more often, because you just don't want wasted experiences. But unless I'm missing something, True, we are ready for level 2.
So for level 2 for me was about getting that trait gain going. So I wanted to get that +1 to my presence and that +1 to my finesse. Because since finesse is going to be the way I'm doing a lot more of this damage, or at least the hit side of things, I wanted to get that up as much as possible, as well as my hiding ability. Finesse is going to be what you end up using for all your hiding, your sneaking around type stuff. So that brings me to a +3 in my presence and a +2 to my finesse here. I wanted to maintain my presence higher than my finesse because of the fact that the higher presence allows me to do a lot more, and the higher finesse doesn't allow me to hit that much more easily. I mean, it's something, but it's not as great as you want it to be. So, and then I got my evasion up there. So now my evasion should be that nice solid +11 going on. And then I took the Book of Ava, because really and truly, it's a great one. Now, the ones for level 2, I didn't see anything that I truly wanted. There's some good ones, of course, but there wasn't anything that with this particular build that I wanted, and I'd rather have Tava's Armor, the Power Push if I needed it, and then the Ice Spikes to be able to utilize that in a lot of different ways. So between those two in particular, although this seems like I'm going a Codex build, I'm really not. These are pretty much the only two outside of one more that I end up taking that's Codex side. But yeah, so that all kind of leans into the build up of what I'm trying to get to here, especially for as I get to level 3 and level 4. It's a good solid build up to there. But yeah, and experiences that, you'd obviously choose some experiences here that allow you to sneak a little bit better, or to maybe strike more precisely. So at least that's how I see using the experience. Yeah, that's kind of what I took for level 2.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see, for my level 2, I, much like you, went with that increased traits. And here, you're going to see where my traits are going to be kind of spread out, because I want to be able to do a few different things good. I don't want to be particularly great at one of them. So on this one, I went ahead and bumped my presence up to 2 here, and then I bumped up my finesse to 1.
Okay.
I'm really trying to like even out agility, presence, and finesse for this character. I am dumping instinct, strength, and knowledge. I don't care about it.
Yeah.
And for my domain deck card here, I went ahead and picked up Troublemaker.
Oh, okay.
I like this one because I want to be dealing stress. I know we're not a support build, but this could be on the offensive end. If you're fighting a creature that is, you know, dishing out 3 attacks or so before your next turn, they're going to be very stressed, and you'll be able to mark them for a number of d4s equal to your proficiency, like, and that's gonna scale. So
Yeah.
I like the idea of just wiping someone out, just maxing out their stress while you're up in the air, while the rest of your party is down there in the front lines.
Yeah. Well, and especially with your kind of ranged build, I mean, you can do it within far range. Like, that's awesome.
Exactly. What did you do at level 3?
Level 3 was kind of boring, except for the fact that I took invisibility, but I did also increase my HP by 1 and my stress by 1. So I wanted to make sure that my HP was up, especially if I was going to be in close quarters. And then I did want to get a little bit more stress because invisibility requires you to kind of mark a stress. And so with my presence and that stress, I'll be able to start attacking from the shadows, and hopefully with the mist on top of that, just advantages on advantages is what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So, but yeah, so that's my level 3.
That's why I like letting you go first, because you get to explain all the stuff that I had like written down in my notebook, and then you just do it. So I just get the nice and easy parts. Yeah,
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, so my level 3, much like yours, was a little boring, but you're gonna see some familiarity here. I went ahead and also added an HP slot and added a stress slot. Much for the same
Nice.
reasons that you did. I just want to be able to live a little bit longer, and further down in the levels, they may be picking up some things that are going to cause stress. So I want to make sure I have enough stress to deal with what I want to do. And for domain deck card, I went ahead and grabbed the Book of Norai, much like I did with my support bard build.
Yep.
Main reason for this was Fireball, because sometimes you're going to come into creatures that are resistant to non-magical damage. You're going to want a reliable spell just to deal some damage, because I don't see this fairy being on the ground at all during combat unless things go real bad. So
Yeah.
I wanted to have a Fireball there in case, you run into a big bad or something that just brushes off every non-magical attack that comes through. So I picked up Fireball there. Mystic Tether is very nice, much like I've said before. It's a perfect control spell. You can restrain pretty much anything, even if the creature is flying. So this is definitely one of my biggest worries about playing the character that I've created was Mystic Tether, because once you get me on the ground, we're in trouble. What about your level 4 there, Drew?
So my level 4, I did end up taking an armor slot.
Okay.
I did want that because later down the line, I will be able to, instead of taking stress, I can use an armor slot to take that stress. So for whatever reason I'm building up, I can throw that into my armor slot instead, which I absolutely love. And I also increased my major threshold by +1. And then I took the Book of Grin again.
Okay.
I needed it primarily for the damage denial out of that once per long rest, I can spend that hope to negate that incoming damage. That's exactly what I want. I also wanted the Wall of Flame, because it was either this or I was going to take Manifest Wall, and Manifest Wall doesn't nearly have enough to go with it for me to want to take it. This at least has a few things for me to use, and then Time Lock isn't bad either. Probably not what I'm going to be using a lot of with this particular build, but
Yeah.
Wall of Flame, solid. Especially if you're up front like that and you're getting in their face a little bit, you can use that Wall of Flame behind them. Do that 4d10 +3, especially if you got a bunch of people around you. So nice. So yeah, but that's my level 4 right there.
I'm seeing a lot of similarities between your and my builds. For my level up options here at a level 4, I went ahead and increased my evasion, unlike you.
Yeah. Yep.
But I also did increase my major threshold, much like you did. Much for the same reasons you were talking about. We're a little squishy at this point. Just naturally playing a bard, you're not going to have the highest evasion. You're not going to be tanking the most hits. You want to have something to kind of negate that. And you can just leave that card up on the screen from you explaining it. But I also took the Book of Grin here.
Oh, nice.
I really liked Arcane Deflection, much like you said. Negate any oncoming damage from a single attack. Like that's major here. And also for the Wall of Flame. I like the Wall of Flame from a flying creature though, because you might be able to get a better like point of where to place this Wall of Flame if you do have a horde of like monsters coming down on you. You just pop it up. Take 4d10 plus 3. It's a lot.
Huge.
It's a lot of damage.
You can almost, especially at level 4, be assured to do at least 3 hit points to somebody.
Yeah.
Into each and every single somebody that's within that. So can't beat that.
Yeah.
Especially for 1 stress. So,
yeah, especially for
like
1 stress. Yeah. But yeah, what'd you do at level 5 there, True?
Level 5, I did another trait gain because this is a new tier, new traits. Who is this? So I added +1 to my presence and +1 to my finesse. So that has me sitting at a nice +4 to my presence and a +3 to my finesse, which means that's 4 actions on my invisibility. That's 4 tokens on my inspiring words. So I'm going to keep that going. I also took an additional domain card.
Oh. Okay.
I did want a couple of things. So I did want to go back to level 4 and grab Through Your Eyes. Because again, if I'm doing this kind of stealth bard build, I want to be able to use that kind of information gathering almost, where you can see through somebody else's eyes at very far range and hear what they hear. And then essentially I can just do that. I'm not marking stress. I'm not spending a hope. You can just point and you've got it, and I love that.
Yeah.
That's something reliable that you can just kind of leave in your loadout and just use whenever you need to. And then Words of Discord is my next one that I ended up taking. So I really wanted to get that ability to basically have the target attack somebody else. And I wanted to be able to use that quite a bit. And as long as I'm making the spellcast roll, that's really easy to do, especially if I'm playing 2 different adversaries against each other like that. And then I'm also doing damage on top. So that should help with my ability to take adversaries down more quickly.
Yeah.
I definitely wanted to use that. So yeah, those are my level 5 takes. What about you?
Yeah, so for level 5, increased traits. It's every few levels we get really excited about this. So here I went ahead and I put a plus into my finesse, and I put a plus into my presence here, sitting me at 3 presence, 2 finesse, and 2 agility. I'm trying to spread these out a little bit. And then for my second level up option, I went ahead and added another stress slot.
Okay, yep.
For my domain deck card though here, I went ahead and picked up teleport.
Okay.
Yeah, I went ahead and grabbed the Codex Teleport here. Once per long rest, you have the ability to instantly teleport yourself and a number of others within close range up to your level, somewhere you're aware of. I like this because I see my character being kind of like a scout or so, and if you scout ahead and you see something walking into that you just know your party is not going to be able to handle it, you can just get out of dodge.
Or you can get into dodge.
You could get into dodge if your party's up for it.
Especially with you as a scout, because think of it like this. Like if you're, let's say, a sprite or something, small fairy creature, right?
Yeah.
And you're scouting ahead, that place now becomes at least visited to you, if not semi-known to you.
Yeah.
And so your ability to get the party in is that much easier than if they were to try and go blasting their way through, or whatever it is the party does when they say Leroy Jenkins.
Yeah.
And instead you're like, guys, I have a better way, and get them through what might be an entire battle scene situation. Yeah. And now you're just in it. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
And like the heritage features of Seaborn, this is where you could pile up those tokens that you've been rolling with stress all night long. You can add, 4 or 5 stress to make that a pretty even roll, to make because if you've never been to the place, you're gonna take a -4 penalty to the roll. So this would be an opportune time to cash in those stress tokens. No, yeah, that's the end of my level 5 here. Let's move on to level 6. True, what did you end up doing?
And we are ripping through at level 6.
We are.
Let's see here. I did go back and grab my upgrade subclass card. So my specialization.
I was curious if you were going to specialize here.
I needed to, mainly because it allows me to either, have everybody gain a hope, or gain everybody, or everyone gain a, clear stress. So, and especially with the rally die, like, not only do they get the rally die, but they can grab that hope, they can grab that, they can clear that stress, whatever, because rally does not have to be at the beginning of a day. You can do it before you go into something that's about to be stressful. You can rally everybody and make sure everyone's good to go. And the specialization here with Troubadour allows you to make that even better. So being able to keep the rally in your back pocket for that moment is a good thing to do, I think.
Yeah.
So I definitely wanted to grab that. Just had to go back and get it. And then I did up my evasion by 1.
Okay.
So wanted the evasion to go up just a little bit more. I went and grabbed the Sigil of Retribution. Because again, we're going damage. We're going to go damage all the way here. And so with that, just giving the GM a fear, although it kind of sucks, but to be able to build that up, especially if you have that one big monster that's damaging everybody around them, that's D8 after D8 after D8 after D8 that piles up on this card. And then when I finally use that, after I get a nice solid hit on them, that's a ton of damage.
Yeah, that's a ton of damage.
So having this starting out allows it to become really good as you go, and it gets better as you level. It scales really nicely, but having it now allows a lot more damage to come through, especially with this kind of scoundrel situation where I'm just coming in with just daggers. We can make that really hurt. So
yeah.
But yeah, that was my level 6.
I like to see you helping out your party with increasing your subclass there, because I did not. I was very selfish here, and I increased my proficiency. I wanted to add that get that proficiency plus by 1 there.
Okay.
And then for my domain deck card, I went ahead and grabbed Never Upstaged. This is where This is where things are starting to come together. When you mark 1 or more hit points from an attack, you may mark a stress to place a number of tokens on this card equal to the number of hit points you marked. So this is why I've been adding a bunch of stress slots. Like, I'm going to be using this as often as I can. As often as I have stress to spare, I'm going to be using Never Upstage. Like, I don't think this card is going to be leaving my hand. Because on your next successful attack, increase your damage total by 5 for each token on this card, then clear all tokens. So I'm thinking you save up, 4 tokens on this card, and it's getting down to the late stages of combat, and you just need that final shot. You pull out that longbow, you take an attack, you spend in all 4 of those tokens. That's a plus 20 to your damage.
Yeah, that is nuts. And I also love the bit at the end. Now, this is kind of subtle, but I really like this, that once you take your long rest, you clear that much stress.
Yeah.
So to me, you have until your next long rest to build that up, because you can take short rest to mitigate down your stress level, but still maintaining the tokens on the card.
Yeah, the tokens won't go away.
You can build it up throughout the day, especially if you're doing other stressful things, and you can leave it there and wait until that perfect little moment where you're like, you know what, I'm going to use it here. But on top of that, you can use it on any successful attack. It's not like once per short rest or anything like that. You can use them as you go.
You can keep running it. And I mean, the longbow here is going to be doing like 46 plus 3.
Yeah.
You take an attack, you add in 20 damage. I mean, what is that? That's a minimum of minimum of 24 damage.
Yeah.
And it really doesn't cost you anything because there's ways to remove stress. Like
there is, especially inspirational words.
Yep.
The troubadour specialization there like allows you to remove some of that stress as well. Like there's a lot of ways to remove stress as you go and still maintain the tokens sitting there.
Yeah.
And so you can just keep peppering it in if you want to. Like you can make sure that you're going to be hitting severe damage on any and every adversary that you attack at this point.
Yeah. And sure, another thing here at level 6, I wanted to subclass into Rogue so bad.
Oh, yeah.
I think because that's where the synergy portion comes in. If I were actually rebuilding this character, I would probably take a dip into Rogue here, get that sneak attack, and still grab Never Upstaged eventually, because that is a Nova round. And that's kind of what I'm going for this character. We're not going to be big on the sustained damage like charts. We're not going to be dealing as much as your warriors or your wizards. But maybe once every combat, this bard's going to come out and hit for probably max damage out of anyone.
That reliable. I'll put it like that. Reliable damage.
Yeah,
for sure.
Definitely. But yeah,
I like that.
That's my level 6 there. What'd you end up doing for level 7?
So level 7, I ended up taking a proficiency +1.
Okay.
I wanted that for sure because much like you, I want to be able to get a lot of damage die going here.
Yeah.
I did also add a health point. I wanted to get that hit point up there. So I ended up, I think by the end of this, I ended up having 9 hit points in total. Not that that's a lot, but because you can have 12 as your max, but I was balancing being able to take a hit with being able to deal out the damage.
Yeah.
And that's where Grace Touch comes in. So being able to mark that armor slot instead of marking a stress is going to be super helpful for me in particular. Absolutely love that one. I also liked on the critical success that I can either force the enemy to take a stress or have an ally gain a hope. Love that. So it's still helping somebody else out or hurting the adversary somehow, some way. And then I can turn the hit points into stress if I want to, and I can just change that as I see fit.
Okay.
Especially allowing me to get that extra advantage basically on them, because when they get stressed out, there's a lot of great things that start to come into play. Kind of like when somebody's exhausted within the D&D 5e side of things, when they're exhausted and they start racking up problems. That's essentially what happens when you make them stressed out. So we definitely were looking to do that, so that way it's easier to deal that damage. So yeah.
No, for sure.
But that's what I took. That's my level 7 right there. So.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm glad that we do have different builds here, because for my level up option here at level 7, I went ahead and added a stress slot, because much for the same reasons I was just talking at level 6 there. I want as many stress slots as possible. And then here I also increased my severe threshold, just for a little bit more survivability. Truth be told, for this build, I just didn't see a better option. And
yeah,
I was like, you know what? I haven't upgraded yet my severe threshold. So I just went ahead and added that, increased that by 2. And for here, this is typical. If you're playing Bard in Daggerheart, level 7 is going to be a big one, because most of the time all your cards are going to be from the same domain, whether that be Grace or Codex. I didn't build this character that way. I've been switching back and forth. So I have almost an equal number of Grace cards as I do Codex cards. So it wouldn't make sense for me to pick up Codex Touched or Grace Touch here. So I went ahead and picked up the Book of Omet here, basically just for kind of control, quality of life improvements for the party. Pass through, you can make a spellcast roll on a wall or door within close range. On a success, once per short rest, you and anyone who is touching you can pass through it. I think that's pretty big. I mean, if the rogue's having a tough time opening a door, the bard can step in. Hey, I can get you through. And then this card also gets you a plane gate. When you make a spellcast roll, on a success, once per long rest, you open a gateway to a location in another dimension or plane of existence that you're aware of. This gateway lasts for 1 minute or until you wish it to close. So say things are getting pretty hairy there in combat and you need a get out of dodge plan. You can open up a plane gate. You guys can disappear for a minute, heal up, do whatever you need to do, and then come back ready to fight. Or even if you're sneaking in a castle or like a government building and you hear guards coming down and there's no escape path, you guys can dip out of there for 1 minute and then just come back. So this was just kind of for more quality of life for the party. There weren't any level 7 cards that really pertained to how I wanted to build this character. So right. I just went ahead and picked up Book of Omen here.
Okay. I like it.
But that was my level 7. What did you do at level 8?
Level 8. Okay, so I did increase my traits because, again, new level tier, new traits. So gonna up that presence to +5 and that finesse to +4. I also did upgrade my subclass immediately here because I really did want to have that second time per long rest for each of the songs. So that comes in handy for sure, especially because I'll be using it all the entire way anyway. So having an extra use of it is just going to be that much better.
Yeah.
I did also take Mass and Rapture. And the point is that just in case you're found out, you get caught, and it's like everybody's descending, if you can make a spellcast roll that hits almost all the enemies that are in that area, you've got them. And you can deal a stress to them if you want to mark that stress, which probably I would at that point. But it allows the party to deal with the fact that we are now being like surrounded, or again, trying to do distraction type stuff within a town, that kind of thing. Like Mass and Rapture has a lot of utility to it, although it may not be damage oriented. It allows the rest of your party to start doing damage, while everybody's focused on you. So it has its gains in the damage area, just not for you.
Not for you.
Yeah, and that's probably the one trouble with trying to do a damage roll kind of bard here, is you don't have a ton of options to do that. You're kind of mitigated to the support build and magic dealing, and not a whole lot outside of that.
You are.
It doesn't.
And even the magic from a lot of these bard cards, they're not very powerful spells. It's majority, support. So
right. And you kind of have no choice in that, so you kind of have to make the best of not a bad situation, but of a mitigated situation, I'll put it like that. And absolutely. I think that's where I want to see that second domain deck be whatever you as the player choose it to be.
Yeah.
So that way I can be the battle bard and start taking some of those like warrior cards, or being able to use the blade domain deck, bone domain deck. Being able to use Splendor or Midnight and be able to bring some of those other flavors in while still being a bard. Because I could go rogue and still do the same thing that I'm talking about, but I want to be the bard, that musical individual, that charismatic individual, the kind of go-to talker with this stuff.
Yeah.
But I also want to be able to do the damage on top of that. So that would be the fix that I would probably instill, regardless of what's put out there when the final game does come out for Daggerheart. If they don't put that in there, I'll just make that a homebrew roll at that point and just be like, let's see how this goes, and does that actually break the game? Which I don't think it would. A lot of this stuff isn't going to break the game, especially with the way the level up is. There's a lot of things that you want to be able to take as you're leveling up, but you just can't seem to take it all. And you're constantly left with so many open blocks as to what you can level up, like what still needs to be taken, but you just can't take it. So
No, for sure. For my level 8 here, I went ahead and also increased my traits there. I added to my agility here and my presence. So I'm putting my presence at 4, and that's the highest it's gonna get. Nothing's getting higher. So
Nice.
I'm sitting at 2 finesse, 3 agility, and 4 presence right now.
Okay.
And I think that's where I'm gonna kind of tap out. Like you
Yeah.
said, I'm playing a bard. I want that presence. I want to be the face of the party, being able to talk to him, play instruments at the local tavern to get some food and drink on the house, right?
Exactly.
Like, that's why we all play bards. But I did that, and then for here, for my second level up option, I went ahead and increased my experiences. Now, hear me out. If you remember back when we were sitting at level 1, the experience that I was really wanting to hone in on was going for called shots.
Yep.
Now, that could be simply with your longbow, but just getting to increase those experiences by 1 will help out because, like I said, at the end of combat, I want to be able to successfully execute that Nova round that I'm dealing with, where I'm cashing in all my fear to deal a lot of damage. So I'm increasing experiences there, which is kind of new for me. I haven't done it yet. And then for domain deck card, I also chose Mass and Rapture. I feel like if you're playing a bard and you can fly, at level 8, if you don't take Mass and Rapture, you're doing your party a very big disservice.
Yeah, like, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
Gosh.
Because for whatever reason, you're facing a handful of enemies that just don't have range combat. You can just shut them down just by flying a few feet off of the air, and while still attacking with your longbow here or casting down firebolts.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I really like Mass and Rapture there. I was very, 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 very close to taking Haven because Haven's beautiful. If you wanted to, just throw up that Haven card on the screen and you'll see why.
Yep.
But
Haven was one I ended up not taking at all.
Me neither. Yeah.
Really wanted to, but it doesn't go into this damage idea, this combat idea. I guess it does from a support side to where you can start doing better because you're able to do more long rest type moves, but
it does.
I don't know.
I just love that spell. I just love Haven.
It's so good. So good.
But what'd you do at level 9 there?
Level 9, I did increase my hit point by 1 again.
Yep.
I did take the +2 to armor the +2 armor slots. I wanted that for sure. And then I took one that I found very fun and very interesting, and that was Disintegration Wave. So I love it because it's got a low spell cast roll, and on top of that, for each success, as long as the enemies have a difficulty lower than 18, immediately gone.
They're immediately killed and cannot come back to life by any means.
By any means. And that is such a beautiful verbiage right there.
Yeah.
Because if you've got that cleric that you're going against, whether it's an evil cleric or maybe it's a good cleric, and it just so happens to be on the wrong side of the war, they can't start resurrecting nobody back. Like, all those guys are gone. So, love that.
No, that's just a straight up minion killer, like, automatically.
Yeah. And that's what I was thinking about. I'm like, if I'm going to be up close and personal, and I'm going to be there with my warrior, with my guardian, even probably with my seraph, and we're in the middle of, let's say, an undead horde coming through.
Step back, guys. I got this.
Exactly. So I wanted something that was going to be that in the pocket when you're just dealing with way too many minions. Now, will you always use that? Probably not. It's probably something I'm going to swap in and spend the stress for, or it'll be something that I just keep off to the side, especially if I prepared for the day and I know that we may come up against something like that. Then you could just swap that into your loadout and you're fine. So.
No, 100%. I think that's a very solid choice for level 9.
It's a fun one for sure, but that is my level 9. What'd you end up doing?
So here I went ahead and added an HP slot, and I added another stress slot.
Okay.
Like you said, I'm using stress. And then for a domain deck card, I went ahead and grabbed Master of the Craft to kind of merge level 8 and my level 9 like builds and my experiences. So I'm going all in for that experience. I feel like at this level I am calling every shot no matter what. And depending on how like the ruling is, typically called shots will give you a plus so and so damage to it. So this is just going to factor into that Nova damage build. I'm adding Between the Eyes to a +3. Nice. And I mean, you're basically not going to hit, or you're basically not going to miss, even with the penalty that you're going to be receiving from doing a called shot. But that's when you just dump in all of those tokens that you've saved up as a Seaborn here.
This is Seaborn and your other spell that you took. What was it? The Grace one that allows you to do the stress? I think it was Never Upstaged.
Yeah, Never Upstaged. Never Upstaged, yeah.
You do that on top of it. Not only are you making sure you're hitting, but you're making sure you're severely damaging.
Yeah, it's crazy. This is like level 9s where I truly feel like my character has came to fruition. It's very late, so if you're playing this, it's going to be a slow grind, kind of trying to find your place of combat. You're going to be dealing steady combat throughout it, but this is where it really takes a step up, where it's basically, if you're thinking of like crossbow expert or like great weapon master, that's basically what I've done here with the Never Upstaged and the Master of the Craft together. So you have the opportunity for high burst damage with this character. And you're flying. I mean, come on.
There's a lot of things going on with your build. I like it.
There's a lot of things going on. True. Unfortunately, we have reached it to level 10. We're at our last level. We're zooming through this. But tell me...
Level ups are just going by so fast, and that's why I'm curious to see how that ends up doing in a long form campaign.
Yeah.
How does it feel being at level 10 in that prolonged state, and how far do you take that level 10 before you guys go, that's it, we're done? Like, we've reached the end of this full-on story. Yeah. Is it still going to be enjoyable once you finally hit that level 10?
I do like Daggerheart, though, because it seems like there's a lot of opportunity to go past level 10. I mean, you're not very capped in many things. I mean, it's very easy for a GM to just be like, you know what? We're going to go to level 11. Go ahead and just increase your traits one more time, pick up another domain deck card, and you can just keep it moving that way. You could just do small level ups all the way to whatever you decide on.
Right.
Whereas like D&D feels very capped. Like once you hit level 20, I mean,
you're done.
You're done. There's nothing more you can do. That character is completely too strong. But that's why I feel like Daggerheart's more balanced in the combat aspect, I will say, because neither of these characters have seemed too powerful, much like a level 20 wizard. It just doesn't have that same feel. So I think there's more opportunity to go past level 10 here, especially in Daggerheart.
Well, and that's where I see them being able to properly restructure their level up tiers. Where you still keep the same thing, where you choose 2 choices, and then you take your domain deck, upgrade your severe damage, major damage, all that jazz, right?
Mm.
But they restructure it to where it's like, instead of level 2 to 4, for your first tier, it's 2 to 5.
Yeah.
And then you just keep that going. Or you could do it where it's every 5 levels per tier, and then you can finally move on to the next tier once you make that next level up. So that way you could make it to level 15, and it not be like kind of weird or like where you as the GM's trying to rebalance everything. You could just rebalance it under those 3 tiers again, or just add in a tier 4, whatever you think tier 4 is going to be, where you up the major damage and you up the severe damage. Instead of it being a +2 and a +4 within the tier 3, you can make it a +3 and a +5 for the tier 4 that you just create out of nowhere, So that is a nice point, is that you can keep this going. But I'm curious how that ends up feeling and what that ends up doing. So I think we definitely need to play a campaign that goes high level and even level 10 eventually, just to see what happens. But we are in the level 10, as you said, so let's finish this out. Proficiency +1 is what I went with. I wanted to grab that extra proficiency.
Yep.
So overall, my proficiency becomes a +6 at level 10.
Yeah.
So being able to roll those 6 damage dice is going to be great, especially with them being D8s. Love that to death. And then I took an additional domain card. This is when I finally used that additional domain card within this tier. I took Encore because I wanted to be able to do that same amount of damage again that somebody else ended up doing. So especially if we've pumped them full of pluses and extra damage, I can go ahead and do that right then and there. So hopefully it's severe damage. So we can do another round of severe damage with that Encore.
Yeah.
So definitely wanted that. I also then took Book of Yarrow.
Yep.
I wanted it for that magic immunity, because at this level you're going to be dealing with a lot of enemies that are dealing magic damage. Like we said in the last video, you're going to be dealing with it. So being able to spend that 5 hope towards becoming immune is pretty great. And then Time Jammer has a lot of good uses, especially for you, like for my build, trying to be that, full-on damage dealer. Like, talk about doing a called shot, being able to cut the throat of somebody just right then and there. Like, you're going to be able to assassinate somebody no problem, assuming that you can make the spellcast roll, obviously. So that one to me made the most sense to take to kind of, finish this build out. But I think really and truly, that one is easily replaceable with anything else that you really want, whether that's Transcendent Union or any of the other spell cards that are out there that you want to be able to, add on top of. And because you're going Codex build, you can do that. Or if you want to increase your experiences, you can go back and take Master of the Craft. Like, why not? Get those experiences up there, especially if you use them a lot and you don't want to not waste, but you don't want to use up your level up options on, gaining those experiences, like moving those up. Master of the Craft is a great option to do that. So
yeah, I grabbed it. I love Master of the Craft. Like,
it's such a brilliant thing to do because you're going to be using it.
Yeah.
Easily. And I think just about any character could. And especially if you're stuck or at a loss for what card to choose when you're at level 9 or better, just go back and grab Master of the Craft, and all of a sudden, there you go. You got your experiences up. Reliable.
Yeah.
So.
And that +3 for Master of the Craft is huge too. Like, that's a big addition.
Well, and the fact that you can just permanently put it in your vault, you don't have to have it out in order to really gain the benefit of it. You gain the benefit of it, and then you put it away, and you don't have to think about it ever again. So, love that.
No, absolutely. Yeah, to bring us home here for my level 10 on this character, I went ahead and also increased my proficiency, much like you did. And then for domain deck card, I initially did have Book of Yarrow, but I wanted to change it up a little bit because Book of Yarrow kind of speaks to, like, as it stands, you're kind of still being that support kind of build. Even though Magic Community's huge, I feel like I've added enough HP slots. I'm flying. I have a high evasion whenever I'm flying and someone attacks me. So that's the reason I didn't go for it, and I just simply went with Notorious.
Okay, yeah. It's good to be able to get that notoriety, to be able to add that +10 to your result for that kind of stuff. It's so great.
Yeah, everything's free wherever you go. Like, everything you buy is reduced in price. So if you're planning on staying at level 10 for a long time, you have a bard in your party with Notorious, you're gonna be balling.
Exactly, and I do love. We'll mention it again here. I do love the fact that you can leave it in your loadout. Like, you have to leave it in your loadout, but it doesn't count against your loadout card maximum. So you're essentially having now 6 domain cards in your loadout. So that is nice to have that.
Yeah,
for sure.
No, absolutely. But yeah, that's how I decided to build my character. Like we were talking about at the very beginning, it was a tricky build to make. It's tricky to make bards, featured in combat. It really is.
within Daggerheart. I'll caveat that within Daggerheart. There are other systems, obviously D&D 5e, Genesis system, that sort of thing, that you can bring in a bard and still be a damage dealer. You still have that kind of combat bard going on, particularly in 5e, not only from the spells that you get to use, but also from how you just build it. Here, not as much, at least not as much as I want it to be, but I think these are still solid builds. Like, I could foresee still playing this bard and still being able to deal consistent damage.
Yes. Yeah, you might not be wowing the party with the same numbers that your other members are doing, but it's sustained damage, and like the bard I focus on was more burst damage, so you'll have your time to shine, but it's just a lot of these Grace and Codex cards, they don't really mesh well with going combat heavy, which I mean, it could be a gift and a curse. I mean, now you're gonna be able to, like, you can pop up a Haven and your party could sleep easily for the night. I mean, Notorious, the same thing. Like, you still have those options that makes a bard, which I like.
Yes.
I would just like to see a little bit more combat focused domain cards, which, like you mentioned, like being able to pull that from other classes would be massive.
Well, and especially without having to multi-class. Like, maybe I don't want to multi-class. Let's get away from that D&D 5e mentality of multi-classing to get all the things you want.
Yes.
And let's just do that with a domain deck card and just swap in that secondary for something else that you really want that gets you that flavor. Because then you can still go hard like a bard on cocaine, just totally unchained, without having to get into a ranger for your build, or for rogue for my build, or whatever else we want to take here. So yeah, I think that's something that we'll probably play around with a little bit more. I mean, we kind of force ourselves to stay consistent in bard without multi-classing. Maybe we can start experimenting a little bit with what a good multi-class could look like, and is it worth the squeeze? Something to think about, but
I think at the end of the day, they were both good characters. I mean, that's going to be a strong character to add to any party.
And I think we do fill the combat role really well with a minor in support, and I think that you still have the bard flavor that you want, just with a bit more damage on top. So
absolutely.
That obviously comes through, especially for the character, like how you build this comes through from when you're playing the character in game. All this doesn't sound like, between your bard and my bard, like it's like, okay, how are you going to play that though?
Yeah.
But within the game, you're obviously going to be able to make that make sense as you go through the campaign and go through each of your sessions to make that work for your bard. And it just kind of depends on what kind of damage you want to do. I like doing the sneaky up front. You have the range.
Yep.
It's easy to make sense in some form of a backstory or how you just play the sessions out each time. So yeah, I really am looking forward to what the full game's going to look like once everything's said and done. But I still enjoy what they brought forward within this open beta. So yeah, at some point we definitely need to get that video out for our notes on what we think about the system and everything else. So yeah, that's still to come.
But thank you everyone who tuned in. Don't forget to give us a like, comment, subscribe. True, you wanna bring us home?
Yeah, I think our next one's gonna be Druid here. So we're gonna get that going. Start getting into the Druid on healing and tanking and damage. So see you in the next one.
Yeah, many more videos to come. Thank you guys.
Thanks, y'all.